What the heck is a quad lock?
Watch this to find out.
Whether you're in the car, on the bike, on the water, in the air, your phone is an important tool. Keep it secure with Quad Lock.
Liam just out qualifying Yuki is not a good thing.
It's like I'm giving it everything, mate.
Yeah.
Like, he was just like a pumped up kid, which he is, right? It's the first time this year that Yuki hasn't made Q3, and it's the first time he's jumped in the #1 team. Go there with the little Coke can on a stick. Does it fit under?
Yeah.
Back of the grid, mate.
Coppers are there booking people.
Oh no! He's in the fence! They're both in the fence! They're all in the fence! Oh, unbelievable!
Sound check.
Oh, it's fizzy.
It's a messy one.
Yeah, I shook that one up on you. Sorry.
Beautiful. Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Cheers.
Welcome back to the bar, Elliot. It's good to have you here tonight.
It's great to be here, Scott. Thank you.
We're here for the Suzuka debrief, Formula One. There's not a massive amount to talk about from the race, but there's plenty of talking points still up and down the lane and throughout the teams. But we're back for episode 43, something a little bit different tonight. We are live streaming on YouTube for everyone.
Free to the public.
Free. Give everyone a taste test, see if they like what they taste. If they don't, they won't be back.
No.
But yeah, it's a cheeky little live stream tonight. And what we do for Patreon members, because we love them so much, we always do our supercar pre-briefs and debriefs live for those guys. But because Formula One's new to us, we decided to live stream for the public this one. If they like what they see, they could sub and continue watching. When we finish this pod tonight, we're going to go straight into the supercar pre-brief, which is at Taupo. They're racing this weekend.
How are we saying it? Taupo or Topo? What's the...
It's meant to be Taupo.
Is it? Yeah, because I heard all the drivers are calling it Taupo, and then Crumpon and all that were calling it Taupo.
It's meant to be Taupo, but I call it Taupo.
Okay, cool.
And if you're new to us on Apex Hunters United, I'm Scott.
I'm Elliot.
And we're pretty new to Apex Hunters as well, to be honest. We've been doing this about 9 or 10 months now. Love it. We're big motorsport enthusiasts and race car drivers ourselves. But yeah, Formula One is something that we've wanted to talk about for a little while. So let's get into it, mate. If you want, subscribe as well, turn notifications on. Then when we do these live shows in the future, you'll get notified that we're doing it. But huge weekend in Suzuka. And for Max, it was unbelievable, mate. 4 poles in a row, 4 wins in a row. And he mentioned on the TV, on the broadcast after, how special it was because the last time that team will get to run the Honda-powered engines. So very special for those guys to... I mean, he's just utterly dominated the last 4 seasons there.
Yeah, he's just been lights out fast there.
Yeah.
And yeah, cool for Honda, obviously being in Japan. They had the Rising Sun livery on the cars too. So yeah, fairy book send-off for Red Bull and Honda at Suzuka there for sure.
It was. Not quite the fairy tale ending for Yuki Tsunoda, but all in all, it wasn't a bad race. He still came through, but I guess we start with qualifying because there's a couple real standouts. For me, I mean, the Haas has been a bit of a shitbox all season, and for Ollie Behrman to make Q3 at Suzuka was unbelievable. I feel like that's a track that if you've got the confidence in the car, you can rag a lap. And for him to make Q3 was unreal, I thought. I thought it was really very special. And Ocon was out I think he was out in Q1, Ocon. Yeah, Ocon finished in qualifying down in P18. So pumped by his teammate.
Yeah, that's obviously a pretty special effort there, as you say. New to it, Haas rarely dip into the Q3s, don't they, historically?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was super impressive.
Disappointing, a little bit disappointing not to see Hulkenberg get into at least Q2. I know he said he made a little mistake, but
I mean, those things must have been shit because even Bortoletto was only half a tenth off him. So
yeah. Well, and also like, I think he said he made a little mistake, but I mean, after qualifying, even he admitted everyone has that same story. Every qualifying session we do as drivers is always...
Unless you're on pole, you made a mistake, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
I think Max...
It's page 6 of the driver's excuse book. Usually I find it, that one.
It's a big book. I mean, Max, I think, just took that car to places that it shouldn't have been in the end. And I think it was disappointing for Yuki because in Q1, he was very close. And Q2, just I think he made a mistake in the first sector and lost the lap time there. But it looked like everyone made about a half a second from Q1 to Q2. And had he made that same jump, he would have been through to at least really good in Q2, if not Q3, which would have been great. I mean, for a kid who's done 3 practice sessions in that car.
Yeah.
And I know they made compromises with setup as well. Like I think they went with a high downforce setup for his car to make it a little bit more stable and more confidence inspiring for him. But that would have been a real good start for him, I reckon.
Just looking at the quality results now, mate, do you reckon it was a little bit of complacency from McLaren? Because like they said, they both had the shits that they didn't maximise the cars they had. And I'm just looking at Q1, Q2, they were comfortably ahead of Max.
Yeah.
And do you think it was just a little bit like Lando in Q2 was 4.5 tenths ahead of Max? Do you think they maybe were a little bit complacent going into Q3? Like, do you reckon they were looking at the times enough to be like, I reckon I can just go do a solid job and it'll be enough? Like, is that what happened, do you reckon?
I would agree with that if the McLarens weren't as close as they are.
Yeah.
Like Lando and Oscar,
both drivers doing that.
They're pushing each other. So both of them are going to want to be on pole, and they know that if Lando doesn't execute, then Oscar's going to get pole. So I think those two drivers are pushing to their maximum. I do think they were I think it was unexpected for everyone to see Max do the lap he did,
and the lap record too. Like,
it was ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's not uncommon for Max to do those sorts of things. So but even watching his onboard, like, I've not seen a lap in any race car look quite as good as that. Like, it is. I mean, and I know that the top 10's only separated by seconds. When you watch people's onboard, you kind of, everyone is doing a very good job, but when you watch the onboard, it's like a video game. It's just dialed in on rails. And I honestly don't know how they've got fucking brains strapped into those things and actually wheeling them around that track, because I know the race might not be that overly exciting, but that first sector, as narrow as it is and as how big and wide these F1 cars are at the moment, it is insane. I could not believe that lap. I said to you this morning at breakfast, I was like, you have to just go watch that and repeat that lap, because that's probably one of the best onboards that I've ever seen, and that was Max at his peak, I think.
Which I did go and do. And as you said, mate, the confidence he had just to like tip it in on some of those high, like, just as you say, from left to right, just to change of direction, he was so confident.
Yeah.
Or just didn't give any, didn't give a shit. He was just like, it's going there anyway, regardless. And
it almost looks like that. Like, he almost throws caution to into the wind in Q3 with the change of direction, because I think the front is very lazy. So you've got to be super aggressive. But it's a car that could bite you, which I think is where people where Liam struggled. I think even Yuki went for a car that was a lot higher downforce. But for Max to throw the thing through the S's the way he did was just like caution to the wind, went for pole position, and nothing was going to satisfy him other than that. So,
I mean, you put in your notes, mate, the McLaren had the 3 fastest sectors, but they didn't put them together. So, yeah, you would say that either mistakes or not maximising, not that perfection like Max was.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, and that's like Oscar's no one asked him. I put in the notes as well. Like, it was great to see Hinchcliffe tonight do the post-race interview. It was awesome. And he asked a couple of good questions to the point where Oscar actually said, oh, great question. Like, we never get good questions in the post-race. I would have loved to have heard someone ask him to describe what happened in the first sector of his last lap, because in Q3, Oscar, his second and third sector was purple, but his first sector was down by quite a bit. And we never really found out where that was. And you don't, because they only analyse P1 and P2 as well.
Yeah.
But realistically, it would have been good to see Oscar's lap overlaid with Max to find out exactly where in the first sector he gave it up. And then also, where was he so good in the last 2 sectors? But the post-race interviews, we give supercars a hard time for some of their commentary. But that girl that does the commentary for F1, Naomi, useless. Like, the post-race interviews are like...
There's not a lot of depth there with the question you say, and that's why it was refreshing having Hinch there.
Yeah.
Obviously, I mean, I know Naomi's a race car driver too, I think.
She was,
She's done some stuff, but to the level that Hinch was, like, there's just a little bit more depth there in the questions. He probes a little bit harder. I mean, we've had him on the show. He's amazing.
Yeah.
So that was nice.
They're just like fluff questions. It's like you got these guys in front of you to ask them great questions and find out a little bit of insight into what happened, because that's, as fans, is all you get is those moments. And then when they ask a great question, how was it out there?
Yeah, that's
like,
right. Did you have a good time? Who gives a shit about a good time?
Literally, it's like, it was like that,
But I think maybe over the years, maybe guys like Kimi and Max have scared them all off from asking deep questions in case they get the old, don't talk to me, not interested.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it is, we have seen some female commentators do good jobs, but I just feel like if you're only going to ask surface level questions, there's not really much point. And you might as well throw in someone like Hinch in those special moments where, today he asked Oscar if he pitted when he did to try and force the hand of Max and open up the strategy for Lando. Yeah. It's a great question. Oscar didn't even really know the answer to it, because obviously that's probably something more for a strategist than the driver.
Well, until he debriefs with the team too. As he said, I have to go back to the team and ask what their thoughts were, but I thought it was an okay strategy. But yeah, I thought he dug a little bit deeper into, like, he wanted to be let by Lando, because he thought he could go chase down Max.
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff, which is all that juicy stuff you want to know. You want to try and see if there's some frustration there. Like, they're trying to build stories, right?
100%.
So they're trying to see if Oscar's already got the shits with Lando and blah, blah, blah. So
It was a little bit disappointing they didn't let him go, though, wasn't it?
yeah, I would have loved to have seen, and like we've seen it before in time, right? You got 3 laps. If you can't get within this point of him, then you're giving it back. That's all they had to do.
Yep.
You know, and 3-4 laps, go your hardest. If you're not there, you got to roll over and let Lando back in front.
And they had 13 seconds to the Ferrari. Like, there's an opportunity there to switch the drivers. And like you said, at the end of the race, you don't get the job done, just move it back.
Yeah.
But I think as well, like, it looked like, especially with these recharge of the batteries, Oscar would get very close, but then they would be the laps that Lando's recharging, then he'd gap him again.
And then he'd have to recharge after getting close because he'd use the power and then...
And that's where a team, they've got to step in and make a decision, because you can't really leave it up to the drivers, because it's just built into us that we're always going to be fighting for our own best interest and we're never going to give it up.
And of course, if you're Lando, you're going to say, no, I'm still conserving. I'm still waiting. I'm not going yet.
Yeah, of course.
Even if you're working your ass off, you'd be like, no, I'm just conserving, you know. So I think, I'm with you, mate. I would have loved to have just seen them just try it. I know they're trying to walk that tightrope of, they've got both number one drivers and they're not trying to come across like someone's got preference, but they didn't do anything. They didn't try to win the race. They could have tried things to see if they could catch Max.
Yeah.
They just played it very standard and didn't really, as I said in the comms, I think as Villeneuve said in the comms, like they just copied Red Bull. So they weren't going to catch him.
Exactly. Even passing, and that's where Jacques said in the pit lane, when they pitted the same lap as Max. So if you, I'm sure everyone that's watching here wouldn't be watching this if they didn't watch the race probably, but Lando pitted the same lap as Max, and Max was kind of forced to pit because Oscar took the stop when he did.
Yeah.
As it turned out, when you look back at the race, the overcut didn't really the undercut didn't work. It was actually the overcut that was more powerful. So
that surprised me too.
And that's where Lando should have done something different and gone the next lap, because pitting the same lap, especially when there's 1.4 seconds between them at the time, a pit stop's 2 seconds if they nail it, 3 if they really fuck it up.
Yeah.
The chances, I know he got close, but the chance of him actually passing him in a pit stop today in this day and age is very slim. So you might as well go the lap later, because once, 1.5 seconds behind, he could have made that call.
Definitely.
Okay,
in a
Max
faster
is pitting,
car too, he could have.
Max is pitting, I'm going to go round.
And just work it.
Wheel it, and just see, because it's probably your best shot at that point.
Yeah, had nothing to lose. What do you think of leaving pit lane together? When Lando he was like good over try, but he was on the grass. He was never going to get traction. Like
it was like, and the grass doesn't come up like a subtle line. It is a solid, like tarmac ends, grass starts.
Yeah.
And he drove straight through there like he had a lawnmower. I saw Max in the post race said, it's an expensive lawnmower.
Yeah.
But it was good that he was there. But like Lando even said, of course, Max is the one guy. You're never going to expect him to give you room. Yeah. And rightly so. Like you said, nothing against him. That's just what you expect. And but I just think maybe going that lap longer, do something different. And maybe McLaren need to get a little bit more aggressive, aggressive with their drivers, aggressive with telling them what to do in terms of strategy. And then also, in the race, their own strategy, be more aggressive. Go the overcut and see if it works. They did the undercut, and it was very clear that Oscar had lost time to the leaders by doing the undercut. So immediately, the overcut's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. Like I said, the drivers are the employees. You tell them how to do their, almost, rather than letting them try and be a little bit soft and not upset the piece. Right, we're going to go do this.
Yep.
This is your job today. This is what you're going to do.
Yep.
I like Brad's comment in our live chat there. He said the McLaren.
Yeah.
That was very good, Brad. Well done. And
the general consensus in the chat seems that the first sector is amazing to watch in qualifying, but it destroys the racing. And I think the cars now, they're so big. It's hard. They've got so much downforce. They're so fast. And what makes them impressive in qualifying is kind of to their detriment in the race. And I don't know. It's a cool track, but for sure, this is one of those places that qualifying is qualifying is always the easiest place to overtake cars. And even more, and Suzuka is one of those places for sure.
And we're chatting about quality a bit, guys, but that's obviously because the race wasn't that exciting. Most of the excitement was in practice and qual to see where people are going to land, what's going on. So, I mean, you had there, mate, it's the first time this year that Yuki hasn't made Q3, and it's the first time he's jumped in the number one team. So that's interesting. We said it pre-show, the pre-Suzuka race pod, is the Racing Bull quicker than the Red Bull? We kind of think it'd be interesting to look, and that sort of shows it for the guys like your Yukis, your Liams, your Hadjar, like it's probably a quicker car because they've all gone better in the Racing Bull than they have in the Red Bull. Now, Max is just, as someone said in our comments, Max is just an alien, what he can do with that thing.
The guy's a freak, yeah. With all due respect.
Yeah, with all due respect, go back to your planet, mate. You don't live here.
I hope everyone's enjoying the show. We want to give a quick shout out to our partners that make this possible. Start with East Coast Car Rentals. If you're in the market for a rental car, AHU15 for 15% off already fantastically priced hire cars. Trico wiper blades. Barbs, if you're in the market for wiper blades, what are you going to buy?
Tricos.
Absolutely. And if you don't want to rent a car, you want to buy one, Lancaster Motor Group.
That's right. And if you go in and you mention Apex Hunters, you get a free wheel alignment. When's that till, Scotty?
End of June, I believe it is this year. So if you get in and mention Apex Hunters, you don't mention our name specifically because
I won't know who you're talking about. But if you are one to hit the gutters, or your missus likes to hit the gutters in your car, mine is guilty of that too. Take it in, they'll give you a free wheel alignment, job done.
All the links to these websites will be in the description of this video. So Shaw and Partners as well, big supporter of ours are on the microphones, only fresh these ones. And Quadlock, the link there if you're after any phone mounts, adapters, or a cover. You need a case for your phone. Action cam mounts as well. We smashed those that we used them flat out at the Adelaide Motorsport Festival. Any of the vision
they're
that was
awesome
captured there was
so quick to just change them.
Well, that was the thing that I didn't realise. Yeah, you don't need to undo your GoPro mount anymore. They've got their own connector, so that's very fast. But if you can, support the partners that keep us alive. If you'd love to watch our podcast live, like some of our Patreon members, go over there and sub. Back to the show. I don't know how he does those things. And like we were talking this morning, so Nick Foster, who is part of Apex Hunters United.
Yeah.
If again, I'm sure we've got a couple of listeners in here that don't know who the hell we are, but
founding father
of the pod, along with Shane Van Gisbergen. But we're chatting to Foster this morning as well, and he's the sim driver at Aston, I think he is. And he was saying like he does like 5 laps around that place, and he's gas. Like it is so fast in the F1 sim. But I don't know what he does at that level to find 0.04 ahead of the McLarens, which are clearly in a quicker car, is definitely unbelievable.
Yeah, no, I agree, mate. Another interesting thing in qual, mate, Albon 3 straight ahead of Carlos Sainz. So I think you mentioned maybe before we got on the show, mate, you know, Albon's getting pretty vocal now and he'll be beating his drum saying, you know, Sainz is an ex-Ferrari guy that was winning races and podiums. He wants to get in a good car probably. He's obviously shown he's good enough. So that's interesting to see how that boils over throughout the year too.
It is. I think I just get the gut feeling that Albon is like, well, even at China, he was on the radio saying, I'm better than these guys in front of me, you know? Like, I think it's actually him taking it personally now.
He's getting the shit show.
He's actually saying this car is, now we're at the point, it is holding me back. And in the race today, his frustration with, it was only 11 laps in when he came on the radio and said that the shifts are shit. You know, I'm already having dramas. They asked him to be more specific. You're never specific when you've just got the shits. You're just like, everything's
terrible.
and that was him today. So he's getting to the point, I reckon he's proved enough against great drivers, especially now that Carlos is in there. But it's still early days in the season. Like you got to give Carlos credit for what he's done. And also I feel like he's a bit of a slow burn. He gets on top of the car, maybe a little bit longer than others. Yeah. But once he does, particularly with his strategy knowledge, he's going to be hard to beat still. I think the first 3 events, Albon's done his bit, but we'll see what happens.
And Australia, he really did 0 racing laps because he's stuck in the fence. As in Sainz. So he's a GP down. So he's only really, it's only his 2nd GP in the car, as you say. It might take some time getting used to. There was some spiciness on the radios with Ferrari again. I heard Charles Leclerc, they wanted him to use more engine braking. He said, there's a reason why I'm not, because it's shit. He doesn't like the balance when it does it. So, it's interesting when you hear like some drivers are clearly not happy with their cars because they're sort of biting back a bit more on the radio to their engineers, which I think is entertaining for us at home.
Yeah, I think they're all operating at such a high level that the cars, when you're being held back by a mechanical component, that's motorsport. Like that is, as a driver, the hardest thing to accept. It's people like Hulkenberg, he's had some opportunity in cars that are okay, never something that's amazing.
Yeah, he's never been in something great.
But he has to just be very good at accepting that he's going to finish his career and have a very average statistic book. He's never going to probably have a win.
Yeah. For a guy that's so good.
And
I think you're right. I think his mindset is he's probably like, yep, on my best day, I'm 6th.
Yeah.
When the stars align, otherwise I'm where I am, and that's nothing to do with me. It's just the opportunities I've got.
100%. Yeah. The Yuki and Liam battle was a hot topic, obviously, going in, and I've seen a few other pods talking about Yuki getting out qualified by Liam. I honestly, it's harsh towards Liam. I know we've got a lot of Kiwi listeners, but unfortunately, Liam just out qualifying Yuki is not a good thing. Like that car was a Q3 car, and he should have been closer to Isaac. And I even think statistically, just based on the first two events in sprint qualifying, Yuki would have been very close, if not ahead of Hadjar in qualifying. So just saying that you out-qualified the main car in qualifying, and I don't think Liam's saying that. I think this is just
people trying to back Liam up, right? Everyone,
exactly, yeah.
Aussies and Kiwis, we all want to see him go well. So people are just trying to back him up, I guess. But
but even people, I guess, that see the online, hey, it's funny because everyone online will give it out. And then when the tide turns and they try and then defend Liam, I think it's just good to be brutally honest the whole time. And whether good or bad, like I think that it's Yuki had more potential than he showed. He made the mistake and qualified P nowhere. But equally, I think Liam probably needed to do more, because if Hadjar keeps doing Hadjar things at the moment that he's doing, he'll get to the end of the season if he doesn't close that gap, and they will put Arvid Lindblad in. They'll put an F2 junior in, or someone that's on the cusp of Formula One at the end of this season. So Liam, you put him back in the racing bulls, and it's not like the pressure's totally off. We said the pressure's almost off Yuki because everyone knows that car's not easy to drive.
Yeah, so what it did was, all it did really was highlight how shit the Red Bull is compared to the Racing Bull, really, by Yuki's performance in qualifying. But to your point, mate, Racing Bulls should have had 2 cars in the points. Going on Yuki finishing six and the sort of spots where he's been, and then Hadjar obviously putting in the performance he did in 8th, I think it was.
7th in qualifying. I think in the race, 8th I think he finished. He lost a spot to Hamilton.
Yeah, he was in the points there. So they probably should have, let's say, if Yuki was still in the Racing Bull, he may have been a spot or two up on Hadjar. So they probably should have had 2 cars in the points today where they didn't. So, yeah, all it's really doing is highlighting how shit the Red Bull is and how good Max is, and that potentially the Racing Bulls, and they're probably the 4th fastest car on the grid, maybe.
Dude, I think the funny thing is, if you put Max in a Racing Bulls, does he win?
Is he lights out? I mean, he was lights out today, but is he,
but then, we said about the operating window, when you got a car that's like really pointy and got a narrow window, if you nail it, it can be a very fast car, but it means
to his liking.
Yeah, and it means that if you make a small mistake, you could be nowhere. But I think that Max seems to just wheel that thing anyway. But it would be interesting to see if you put him in a Racing Bulls at Suzuka this weekend, he probably would have still got pole and won the race, and maybe more comfortably than he did in the Red Bull.
Do you reckon they do what like supercar teams are now not allowed to do, and they send him down to the Racing Bull sim just to throw a lap in to see what its potential is? Like, do you reckon they're doing that sort of stuff? I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, it depends how accurate the sim is, I guess, but you would think they probably do.
Like, you'd have to think they share some things. I know they're 2 different teams, but you'd imagine there's some sort of technical partnership there somewhere.
Yeah. Bruh has put in the chat, Yuki, pathetic performance in Suzuka. He's no better than Lawson. Well, even if you just go by the stats, he actually is. So Yuki didn't get preseason testing, and I know that Liam's testing was hindered. He didn't do the first 2 events in that car, which means that he missed multiple practice sessions as well as a sprint race. Yuki got FP1 to FP3 and then qualified 15th, when in Q1, had he found the time for Q2 without making a little mistake, he would have probably been Q2 or Q3. But even so, just qualifying 15th where he did is actually better than any of Liam's.
Yeah.
So that's the challenge. But it's not also saying that Yuki did a great job.
No.
It's just saying that clearly the car's hard to drive, but unfortunately for Liam, if he was to get out of trouble, he had to do what Yuki's been doing in the Racing Bulls, and that's beat Hadjar. Or if he's not quite as good as Yuki, maybe he's just behind Hadjar, but instead he's, 7 spots behind Hadjar in qualifying or something. I think that's Liam's biggest challenge. And as Aussies and Kiwis, we all want to see Liam do well. I'm backing Liam to hopefully find his stride a bit. But yeah, unfortunately, that is the result. The results don't lie, and that's what everyone's going to look at the end of the day.
Anything else notable from qual? I mean, qual them. I know we've sort of talked about race and qual so far, but anything else before we skip on from there, mate?
I don't think so. I think we had in our notes about pre-event with Ferrari. I think it was Max was probably the biggest surprise, but then Russell didn't put his lap together, and I was really thinking that Antonelli was struggling throughout practice.
Yeah.
That was for me. I thought, oh fuck, he's nowhere. And I actually messaged a mate and said, man, I'm surprised. Kimi's had a fairly tough outright speed start to the season, but then he's come through in the races. But then he qualified in 6th, I think he qualified just behind George. Yep. Albeit George said he lost a couple of tenths.
They all say that, mate.
But they did show that on TV. It was quite big.
Okay.
At turn 1, he had a massive snap of oversteer. He tried to bring his tyres up slower so that he had them for the end of the lap, and then he said he had no tyre temp 1. And turn 1, you saw the big tank slapper he had. But Kimi did an amazing job, and then today in the race was able to go longer than the likes of Hamilton on a hard tyre when he was on the medium.
He definitely did a better job on that hard, and he got a couple more laps out of it than Hamo could. I think it's cool. Like, he's so young, and he's obviously just going hammer and tong. In the race, as you said, he's performed better than Qual. He was pushing really hard because he made a few mistakes through the chicane there, locked up and ran straight lined it a couple of times. But it was kind of cool hearing him on the radio when they said, fastest lap of the race or whatever he got. He's like, you could hear he was like, I'm giving it everything, mate.
Yeah.
Like, he was just like a pumped up kid, which he is, right? So it's kind of exciting to see. I said to you before we started recording, mate, like, if I was George, I'd be a little bit worried because for how early in his career and season it is, he's already kind of in race results getting close. By the end of if he keeps progressing the way that I think he will, by the end of the year, he'll probably be a bit of a little machine. So,
and I think Toto's going to be hoping that Kimi.
Toto's backing him for sure. You can tell.
I think so, but he's backing him for multiple reasons. I think if Kimi does the job that Toto needs him to do, with George being out of contract, they would make a serious play for Max. I think is my gut feel, and then maybe that's where George ends up over at Aston Martin or something. I know there's still the rumours of Max going to Aston, but if Kimi did his job, then but at the moment, if George keeps doing what he's doing, it's hard to get rid of him for a Max and keep Kimi. You've got to get rid of your worst performing driver. Like, it would almost make no sense to get rid of Kimi.
No,
to get rid of George if he just dominates Kimi all year.
No, correct. Yeah,
you're just replacing one good driver with another good one and keeping your worst. If you want to go for a constructors again, you've got to have your Nico Rosberg and Lewis again.
Yeah, and the thing that they could do if they went down that path, let's just say hypothetically Max was going to go there, George was out at Mercedes. Kimi's still young enough that Max could be there for 5 years, do what he wants to do, and then retire.
Yeah.
Kimi's still young enough then to be the number one. So it's not really a threat to his career. As long as he performs well enough and can keep the seat over the period that Max wants to keep driving Formula One for, it's actually not going to affect him in the long term. By the time he's 6 seasons in, he's then ready to win championships because Max is then done.
Yep, definitely.
So,
someone's actually thrown in the chat. Where was it? Henry Daly. What's your opinion of Lawson and Sainz strategy, leaving them on the medium tyre for so long and then pitting them onto a soft tyre really affected their result? I would agree. I think going long for Lawson, when you looked at the gaps in the field, everyone was separated by about the same amount, which is affected by aero. So it looked like it was like 1.4 seconds between most. Liam was 3.5 seconds behind Yuki when they pitted. So he had the biggest gap to the car in front. So he was obviously struggling, so they decided to do something different. Going long on the medium, I know they went really long, but I don't think going long on the medium was too bad. I think what killed everyone that went long, even when you went to like Lewis went to the medium, they couldn't close the gap again because once you got close, the aero effect was so bad, you can't do anything. Like, he closed the gap from Lewis, this is, to Hadjar, Antonelli.
Yeah.
I think it was, Antonelli. He closed the gap to like 8 tenths, 6 tenths, and then it blew straight back out to 3 seconds. Like, the soft tyre, once you got close to someone, it still wasn't enough to pass.
And then overheat.
And then it overheated. So, I don't really know why the soft was...
I think they tried
such a big impact, but I don't think staying out long was so bad though.
No, and I think going on what they were saying in the comms, potentially where they knew they had nothing, were they waiting for a safety car to try and throw a Hail Mary in there? By going so long, just thinking, shit, maybe someone will get beached or something will happen, and we'll get some track pos.
It's about, and I think you're right.
Risk. Like they were in no man's land, so they're like, oh well, let's give it a go. Like, that's kind of, it did sort of feel that way a little bit.
Yeah. No, I've actually been there myself. You're just struggling. It's not your day, and you start thinking for what's our
luck. We just hang out there and someone will bin it.
Actually, I love this question that's coming from Kane Douglas. What did you guys think about JV in the booth? So Jacques Villeneuve, that is, with Crofty. You go first, Barbs. What do you think, mate?
It's a great question. We Kane, we chatted about it. I loved it. I thought it was comical because he's such a hard ass, I guess. And every time they would try and like pump. It's obviously a boring race, right? We all watched it. So the commentators in there doing his job, trying to pump up the action, and he would just show me like, no, they're not going to do that. McLaren's not going to let him swap. They're not going to do this. They're not going to do that. You know, he just shut him down every time. So I thought it was like I was actually physically laughing out loud just watching it on my phone. So that was, I thought that was pretty entertaining. But I'm sure the commentators will get home tonight and go, far out, don't put him back with me. That was hard work.
Well, I rate Jacques Villeneuve because the only thing I love, well, the thing I love most about him is he's not afraid of not getting the next interview. Yeah. So he will ask a question that really upsets the person getting interviewed because he's like, I don't give a fuck if you talk to me again. I'm asking this question today and I want to know the answer. Yeah. So whereas a lot of the journos, they know that if they upset a Christian Horner, he's going to go, well, I'm not talking to that guy again for 2 weeks to just give him a, you know, let him know who's boss. Yeah. Whereas Jacques will ask a question, you know, the hard questions that most people seem to be avoiding. I love that. The other thing is in the commentary box, I love when Crofty would go, okay, Jacques, talk us through a lap. And he would just be silent. He's like, it just highlighted, Jacques is not a commentator. He's your expert analysis or whatever, analyst. Analyst, yeah. And that's what he is. But I thought he was great. I love that he's brutally honest. Some of his insight is really good, especially on doing. Yeah. I think he's saying, you know, we're seeing, an act of desperation almost out of doing, and I don't think that's anything against doing. I think it's just actually highlighting the environment he's in at the moment.
Reality, yeah.
And what it's doing to him. I think there is a bit of desperation in there, but yeah, Jacques he's just fucking honest, and I actually like it. He's asking questions that I feel like the other journos should be asking. But Crofty, just you commentate and then let him add his bit every now and then. Like I think Karoon's amazing. Karoon probably sort of goes on the edge of, is he a commentator or an expert analyst? He knows his stuff, really. But he's almost both. He's so good at that. Whereas, you know, we saw on the weekend, okay, Jacques is not maybe a commentator, but he is definitely a part of the team I think they should have. They should keep going forward.
I agree. And he's not, you wouldn't probably classify him as polished, but he's captivating. People watch and listen.
Yeah, like, even every time he's just like a rough look.
He's in the flanny. He's in the flanny and he's just saying what he wants. But I think that's also a good thing for views. Because every time he spoke, you stopped and you listened.
Yeah.
You know, where sometimes when the commentators, you can go wash the car, mow the lawn for 20 minutes, whatever, and come back. You haven't missed much. But when they're on, you actually sit there and because you know they're going to say something good.
Yeah, I feel like that he also is like, if we could be in the lane, like he's the general punter that has a heap of knowledge that's just plonked in the lane and gets to ask whatever he wants to. So he's asking what we're all curious about.
He doesn't overthink it. What I like too is it's really succinct and he breaks it down in layman's terms.
Yep.
He doesn't overcomplicate it. Like if he's saying that the guy's torching his right front because he's locking the inside, he'll just say, no, he's just over here, he's tired because he's been locking up. He won't then go into this 10-minute spiel on why.
Don't overanalyze it.
He's like, this is what's happening. And you go, oh, sweet. And you instantly know rather than just being confused by a 10-minute carry on.
Yeah. And that's why I think some people think he's having a go at some of the drivers, but I just think he's that honest and unfiltered.
Yeah.
He'll just say it exactly as he sees it.
Yep.
And that's it. But it is funny. You're right. He was shutting Crofty down all weekend. But the problem we get is the feed we get is very British. And I've seen a few comments in here tonight already that Crofty's all over the British drivers. Unfortunately, that's the feed, we receive. Yeah. So, of course, they're going to. But you also got to understand that at the moment they've got a British driver who's finished first and second in each GP this year. So they're going to be talking about him. It's like, how do you not talk about the guy winning? Yeah. People can say they're sick of hearing about Max or whatever, but the guy's winning the race. Yeah. But what I liked about Formula One this weekend, at the start of the race, they're only like 10 or 11 laps in. They did a bunch of replays of pretty much every pass throughout the field. You don't normally see that in motorsport. Like normally you miss, they'll be like, oh, you've probably been there. You finish a race and you're like, did you see that pass? No, it didn't get shown on TV. Yeah, they spent a couple of laps going back and showing any of the action that did take place up and down the field, which I thought surprised me this Grand Prix. They don't typically do that.
Yeah.
It normally is just about the top three guys.
Yeah, whoever the flavour of the month is. Should we talk about Jack Doohan? Because he had a sizable shunt in FP2.
Huge, mate. Still made the apex, though.
He went hunting. He got it. The rear just didn't want to hang on, though, did it?
Threw it across the apex curb.
It was huge. I was, first of all, glad he was okay. It was a big crash. Like
huge,
I
mate,
mean, modern safety is amazing in racing, but still, you got to think like I would hate this. I need to actually ask Carl. I'm sure he knows what the G forces was because they get all that feedback in the medical car because they wear the biometrical glove.
That's right.
It gives them all the stuff, so they can be prepared when they get on scene. But it was huge, like flat there. DRS was open, so he was.
Flynn Johnson threw and it was 50G.
Well, there you go.
Is actually quite low. I thought it would have been higher than that.
Well, obviously the tyres did their job then, the tyre wall, because I would have thought it was more than that.
Yeah. I've had 3 50G impacts myself personally. But I think that, if it wasn't for the tyre wall, that would have been a lot higher.
Yeah.
50G, though, I can tell you, the last one I had bladder failure, I had collapsed lung, broken ribs. Yep. It was pretty bad. 50G it's not pleasant. If you're wondering what that feels like, it's fucking horrible. I think the tyre barrier, if it was only 50G, took out a lot of the impact. One of the supercar guys, Lee Holdsworth, he had like a 70G impact at Darwin. It broke his pelvis.
Yeah, that's right in the concrete wall there. That's right, yep.
So you can have, when was the last one? It was at Bathurst in the Xbox car. If you just put in like Scott Pye Bathurst 2015 maybe in the Xbox car, you see my onboard. Yeah, 15, I suffocated. So I was conscious when I hit the wall and then suffocated and was out for 3 minutes. So that was a pretty horrible one. It was my steering failed in the great Bathurst, the coolest track in the world, in my opinion. Bruh, if you're looking for that, go YouTube. You'll find it. Big shunt.
Yeah, so that was big. Glad he's all right. Rumours are, or I don't know if it's been confirmed yet, DRS was open because he said he could do it on the sim. It was lap 4 of his first practice. And again, he didn't get FP1 because they put the other bloke in the car. So he was out there just, again, like Jacques said, desperation, just trying to prove a point. I am fast. I deserve to be on the F1 grid. And he's just gone out there, DRS opened it, hold it pinned, hope for the best. And unfortunately, it didn't stick.
Even like for him, that Rio Harakawa, I think you say his name, that replaced him in P1, he was quicker than Pierre Gasly in P1. Right. So the pressure again on Jack is just massive because you've got a guy who he hasn't even been talked about as Jack's replacement yet. Colapinto is the only guy, but then you just threw another guy in the hat who is just like, fuck, this guy's beaten Gasly already, which Jack's been yet to do. And then, I think, you were the one that's told me about whether if he tried it in the sim, and I'd heard like it hasn't been confirmed, but like if he's tried that in the sim and then just assumed you can do it in real life, it's a pretty scary risk to be taking. And I think that the first few laps he had done, he hadn't entered turn 1 flat. So this was the first time he'd done it. And it obviously bit him in the worst possible way. But $1.5 million damage. I mean, when your neck's on the line already, you've just crashed at the Grand Prix, which, the Grand Prix's one thing. There was a lot of people that made mistakes that day or had dramas. Yeah. But then China, he got in a crash with Bortoletto as well in the sprint race, which he was penalised for, found to be in the wrong. He had a good Grand Prix. But then to come out and crash in P2 only gives him 3 laps in P3, I think it was, before he went to qualifying. And obviously he qualified nearly last then. It's the clock's ticking on these guys. And that's, honestly, I don't know what to say. It's just you're in a bit of a shit sandwich because you've got to perform. Yeah. But then when you're trying to perform so badly, it never goes your way.
I hear what you're saying. I guess the only saving grace for Jack, whether he gets to stick it out and continue on F1 or whether he doesn't, he won't die wondering. He's gone out there and he's just given it everything to try and keep his seat. So kudos to him for that rather than just rolling around and just getting the arse for being too slow. He's trying to, by doing so, it's pretty ballsy. Like, as you say, just driving by what you could do on the sim versus reality is different, clearly.
And I think even on the sim, they can just turn the grip up if they want. You don't know what you've got compared to real life, I think. I
guess the only good thing for doing today in the race was he finished 15th and Gasly was 13th. So there was only one car in between them, albeit quite a large time gap. About 17 seconds, I think, between him and Gasly over the race.
Which is probably not too bad. Like Gasly did well, did all right in quali. But 17 seconds sounds like a lot. But in F1, when you've got aero wash and everything,
it's a couple tenths a lap.
It's not too bad, and especially when you've got like 10 cars between you or 7 cars between you in the race. Yeah, to lose a couple of seconds between each car is pretty standard. But his race, even at China, I think he did an okay job. So his racing's not too bad. Yep, he probably just needs to, take this next week to have a bit of a breather and reset before the next event. Yep. We know though what Flavio's like. If he doesn't like you or he thinks there's a better opportunity, he'll just
Well, and as we said, it's
do it.
no different to other motorsport categories around the world and teams. Those with midfield cars or back-running cars are generally ones that won't admit that's where their cars are, and they'll think there's another organic problem that can be replaced, like a driver.
Yeah.
So
everyone goes that organic spacer.
Yeah, that's the easiest thing to, rather than look at ourselves and how we can do a better job of building a faster car or a better job in pit stops or whatever it be, they'll just go, well, it's easy just to get this other bloke. He'll be faster. It'll change, and it doesn't. They
do it with every, Bull Sports do it with coaches. They do it with captains and anyone at the top of the tree that is a single individual. They'll try and that's the first person to go rather than look at the whole organisation and what can be done better.
Yeah.
Sound check.
Nice.
There's a couple of good questions in here. Mm-hmm. Where was Flynn Johnson? Thoughts on the grass fires? The grass fires.
Shit hot.
Yeah, righto. Dad, there's a good dad joke there. The grass fires, though, I'm surprised at this level that they didn't do something after the first time it happened. Like, whether
what
it's...
do you want them to do?
Well...
Give it a trim? Get the water truck out? What are you thinking?
Well, it wasn't caused by the grass. It was caused by the skid pans. And they could have removed... The skid pans, they said, it was almost like the rims in supercars. They were added because aesthetically the CEO at the time thought it looked better.
Sparks. It does look cool.
But the rims, I'm saying, the CEO, for instance, it's the same with the sparks, And then all that's happened in supercars is we've got fucking cars interlocking wheels that can't race each other anymore, and it ruins touring car racing. Then you've got like the sparks being added because it looks cool, which it does. But when you have an issue like grass fires happening all the time, like multiple times in practice sessions, maybe go, you know what? Fuck the sparks for this weekend. Yeah. At this level, surely every team could have modified the same amount of the skid pan. And I'm sure that it makes a big difference in the aero balance and stuff. But if that race got red flagged, what happens in Formula One is if you haven't pitted, you get to change tyres under the red flag. So if it was dry, and I think the rain in the morning helped because the grass would have been damp anyway. And in the race, they don't bottom out as bad. But it could have changed the whole outcome of the race with someone, someone joked us online about a Stroll could win this race. If there's a grass fire and he hasn't pitted, just keep going.
Yeah.
Then you pit and you get fresh tyres.
Some fresh tyres while you go.
Save your pit lane time. I mean, he'd need a lot. He'd need about 4 grass fires because he's about 4 stops behind in the race. But it is surprising they don't act on it faster.
Yeah, well, I think once the weekend starts, though, it's probably a little bit harder. But I believe they said they'd resurfaced. It was smoother now. So
that's why they could.
Hence why they were bottoming. Yeah, they could change the cars a bit, run lower, bottom out more. So maybe not as bad.
But even in supercars, something would happen where they'd introduce a minimum ride height. Like they would do that. Supercars, when we have punctures,
jack them up, 100 mil minimum.
100 mil. Lock the diff for going off road.
Sound check.
But we've seen, honestly, I think in supercars at one time there was the tyre failures somewhere like Bathurst or Phillip Island. They increased the minimum tyre pressure on the weekend. And I know the grass fires aren't causing crashes, but they are potentially going to change the outcome of the race. Raise it. You got to raise your minimum ride height. 5 mil or 3 mil, whatever it might be.
Could you imagine hearing the friggin' team principals tearing up, like in F1, because they've designed a car around a set frame height and all that sort of stuff. And then you go, actually, guys,
frame height. What are they running? Space frames? Running aluminium frames? Then Formula Ford now.
Ride heights. Well, I'm used to me Trans Am. They design a car around certain ride heights, and then you go, actually, we've got a few sparks, guys. Just jack them up 3-4 mil. People, like propeller heads, their heads will be spinning off, mate.
Surely they could work it out, though.
Well, you'd think so.
Don't ask the teams. Just tell them what to do.
Go there with the little Coke can on a stick. Does it fit under?
Yeah.
Back of the grid, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Coppers are there booking people. If you would love to, send in your chats. Here's the point of us live streaming. Send in your comments and keep it going there. I feel a little bit bad bringing this up, but it was in the notes as the audit. Did Liam do enough, do you think, this weekend?
Probably not. In my personal opinion, I don't think it was I don't think he won't jump on the plane right going, yeah, I've done enough to be 100% confident for the rest of the year. I think it wasn't a great weekend for him. Qual wasn't great. His team, at the end of the day, his teammate beat him all weekend. And he really needed to go out and just beat his teammate all weekend for him to be confident, I believe. So easy answer is no. Might sound harsh, but that's just, I think, reality. Yeah.
Next Grand Prix as well is in Bahrain. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes there. That is the 11th to 13th of April. So if you're keen to watch the next F1 Grand Prix, we did not promise that this was going to be a super exciting one. Bahrain is normally a little bit better, longer straights.
Yeah.
Some good straight line braking.
Looks like a great track. I'd love to have a burn around.
It does look good.
Yeah.
So, oh my God, I had two ciders. I got the burps here. But if you do want to watch the next Grand Prix, Bahrain and then it's Saudi. So hopefully he does well. I'd love to see him bounce back.
Yep, absolutely.
And like I said, we've only got, Jack and Oscar in F1. And to be honest, from this part of the world, we're probably pretty lucky to have three people,
Think about
including Liam being from New Zealand, very much our backyard. Like I feel like we're all
brothers and sisters, Aussies and Kiwis. But you think about the population between Australia and New Zealand combined, for us to have 3 on the grid in 20, it's the odds are like we bat and small countries, not as much money. We do a really good job. So yeah, we absolutely want to see Liam continue on and have as many, Australia, New Zealand's representing on Formula One for sure.
I'm surprised that in Australia we've managed to get 2 guys to Formula One, because typically it hasn't been a country that's been right behind motorsport though. Like New Zealand.
Yeah, New Zealand.
What's
really
New Zealand,
back,
like 6 million population or 5 million?
You'd have to ask Google, mate. Sorry, that sounds about right.
And they have done a great job, because you got to look just past Formula One as well with,
Think about
Scotty Mack,
NASCAR,
Dixon, Van Gisbergen. I'm going to forget a lot here. But
Ambrose went
Cassidy. Ambrose is Tassie. He's Tasmanian.
Oh, we're saying Aussie and
Oh, sorry. No, I was just saying like New Zealand. You think
right,
from a 5 or 6 million population of people that are out there right now making a living from motorsport internationally. Cassidy, Evans, even Richie Stanaway here in supercars. Armstrong, I'm not sure he's probably making money, but
he's in IndyCar.
Bamber.
Hartley.
Yeah, but that's
Hartley.
There's so many.
He was in F1 too.
Exactly. Yeah, here we go. Like people are throwing him in here. Now, Burlap Sack, that can't be your real name.
That is a grouse name.
But that's the thing. It blows me away. You got, 5 million, Henry Daly said. Matty Campbell.
Carol Campbell from...
What did you just say?
Matty Campbell.
Is he? He's not.
He's Aussie.
Is he Aussie?
We're talking Aussies.
Sorry, Aussies and Kiwis.
Yeah.
So we're doing all right. I think we're punching, and to have 3 guys in Formula One being a Kiwi, 2 Aussies is pretty impressive. So we do want to see him do better.
Scotty Dixon.
Dixon is unbelievable. Like
Will Power. There's a lot for 2 small countries. There's a lot like that. They do well. It's awesome.
Mark Webber.
Yep.
He did a little bit. Now McLaren. This is interesting. We were saying as well, Cletus McFarlane.
I wish he was Aussie.
I would love to get an invite to that race that he does.
Oh, the Freedom 500 in there.
The Freedom 500 that Cletus McFarlane does looks. Oh my God!
I sat out at Calder on Friday doing some coaching with the customer, and I just thought we need to do like the more I go out to that place, I'm like we need to come up with a set of regs for the Apex Hunters Cup and put on like a 4 or 5 hour enduro, make it really cheap and affordable. SA license, so it's easy to get a day license. We need to do something. I know we're sidetracking, but I sat out there and I thought, because of obviously that was on this weekend. It's such a cool thing.
Andrew Day threw in there. Scott Dixon was born in Brisbane. I don't know if that's
controversial.
I don't know if that's true, but we'll take
claim
it.
Him. We're going to claim
it. Scotty, you've done Australia proud. Well done.
Yeah.
That's going to upset a lot of Kiwis. Bruce McLaren, I do love that Liam actually started to say how it's sad to see that McLaren don't play the Kiwi national anthem when they win.
Sorry, I was reading comments.
Oh, sorry. So McLaren, they play the British national anthem when they win.
Yeah, which is strange being Bruce was a famous Kiwi.
Exactly. And so that came up. Liam mentioned that on a pod, which I actually really respected that he did, because it's nice to see you never forget where you come from. And he said it would be good to see McLaren actually honour a little bit of what Bruce McLaren was about.
Actually, I don't want to sidetrack or toot my own home, but one thing I was really proud of was when I drove the McLaren in New Zealand.
Yep.
We won at Highlands. And I just thought that was a cool thing to drive a McLaren, even though they were built, the G3 car gets built in England or whatever, but it was still cool to have the McLaren badge and win in New Zealand. I thought, because,
that's very cool.
I think a lot of people think he was just British, but
I think they do.
Actually, Kiwi.
I think now that anyone outside this part of the world probably does try and take him over. But yes, so McLaren. One thing we'd love to see them start to be a little bit more aggressive. Zach, I'm sure you listen to us. I do actually. I spoke to Zach before the Grand Prix. Actually, Zach Brown.
Call him now.
We've
done this before. Call him now.
I won't. I did. I texted him when that. You know what blew me away with Zach? And if you do listen to this pod, Zach, where you see this clip. I text him at the Monza Grand Prix when they won. So Zach was my boss in supercars for a little while, and I thought they won in Monza, and I was that excited. I was up and about. Daniel won.
He got the tattoo, right?
I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to text Zach. I've still got his number. Text him, and he replied like,
would have been his PA.
I hit send, and no, it's like straight away replying, and I'm like, oh my god, he's replying, and he's like going nuts about can't fucking believe it, just won the race or whatever, and he would have still been like, I don't know, maybe it was 20 minutes after the race or something, but I think McLaren they've got everything in front of them this year to win this title. One of their drivers. Obviously, we'd love to see Oscar do it. Yeah. Days like today, they should have, I think, in my opinion, switched the two, given Oscar a crack at Max once they realised Lando couldn't do it.
Nothing to lose. Don't
leave it up to the drivers. Make that call themselves and then switch them back if you can't do it. Because like you said, there's nothing to lose. 13 seconds to Ferrari, and at some point they're going to have to, they've got to be exceptional because somehow Max pulls that thing out of places that it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Or into places it shouldn't be.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree, mate. I just think, nothing to lose. And as we said, Oscar, you got 5 laps, whatever it be. If you don't get to him, you then got to redress, give it back to Lando.
Yeah.
And then the fans at home know that was all that Oscar had. That was all that McLaren had. Yep. Either Max was too good or, McLaren cars are faster. He was able to get the job done. I just think it's better for everyone.
Yeah.
I agree with that, mate.
Carl, the one and only, I agree. He said Piastri clearly had pace over Lando, but Oscar would have got stuck behind Max in the dirty air anyway.
Yeah,
I agree, but
he trimmed that thing out too. So,
but you also got to have a go. Yeah. It's like the overcut. More than likely, wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
But if you don't have a go, what are we going to do? You're going to just follow Max around all day, pit behind him, go out behind him.
Yeah, and that's like what Villeneuve said. He said, 1, they're not going to let him do it, and 2, if he did, he's still got to get past Max. Chances of that happening are slim, but as you said, at least we get to see if it's possible.
And it's Max.
Yeah.
So, I agree. Andrew Day, clearly a supercar fan, because he said, I didn't hear parody once all day today. I agree.
Yeah. Refreshing. And all the cars are wildly different. No one talks about it.
Exactly. The last point we had in our pre-brief was Charles and Lewis battle. Looks like Charles got the upper hand on him this weekend. I had picked Charles for a podium, which I was wrong. He finished 4th, but he was a fair way behind. And this is where Max really impressed me today. I think if both McLarens were ahead of Max, they would have gapped him. But Max still managed to put like nearly 15 seconds on 3rd. Like he was 13 seconds behind 3rd, I think Charles was. So Max, he did things that were pretty special today. Lewis, his strategy didn't work out. He just was on the back foot anyway from qualifying.
Yep.
But he did lose a lap in qualifying. Whether or not he would have improved or not, he got blocked by Carlos Sainz, who lost 3 places. I don't know if that would have been enough to bump him up, but once you're behind in qualifying, I feel like it's near on impossible to do anything. But that was, sorry, actually, as I say that was Q2, so it didn't actually affect Lewis because Q2 he still made it through to Q3. So in Q3 he did 23 laps in total across qualifying, and Leclerc only did 21. So he definitely got the runs in the bag. He just didn't have the pace. So Charles did his job and took home the Ferrari battle for the weekend. So
I agree.
There you go. That answers that.
Cool. Well, that's really the Suzuka wrap-up, mate, really. As we said, the race wasn't overly exciting, as everyone's saying in our comments here.
It's funny, though, how this is where supercars, we love it, but they can do such a better job because the car racing in Formula One, I'm a massive F1 fan, if you couldn't tell. But the racing's not the best product in the world. I think IndyCar has a much better on-track product, particularly in the races. But there's so much to talk about. I think that the inter-team battles this year's been good because there's been the switch in Red Bull. Not good for anyone in particular, in individuals, but it's been fun as a fan to see what's happening. And there's always something to talk about. The races, it almost doesn't need to be.
No.
There's so much to talk about after qualifying and practice. But I think that, we could, here in Australia, we could be doing a much better job with the talking points. Yeah. Don't exactly know the answers, but they're conversations that I'd like to be having because the racing we have here in Australia is great. But Formula One, we've just chatted now for an hour about F1.
About what was it, going by our comments of everyone here, a snooze fest, but we still managed to talk for an hour.
Yeah.
We do rabbit on sometimes.
Here we go. Here's one.
Yeah.
Captain Lagstone. How do you read that? Elliot, do you think you'll stay off the walls at Bathurst unlike Scotty? Ha ha ha. Sorry, Scott.
Geez, I hope so. That's the plan. Don't you put that evil on me, boy.
Don't turn into the cutting offline, Barbs.
Yeah.
It bites hard. I can tell you. The cutting is an evil bitch.
Yeah. Fingers crossed, mate. I don't know. Hopefully we've put a heap of work in over the last since Tassie on the car. So fingers crossed we roll out and it's all a good weekend.
Andrew Day just threw in, how was Bortoleto shit himself while talking on the radio and qualifying? He did. He actually, did you see that?
Literally shit himself? Or?
No, he didn't.
Oh, right. I'm like, I missed that.
He never passed feces, but he did.
No Code Brown.
No Code Brown. He dropped the wheel into 130R, had a massive wobble, but didn't realise he touched the gravel or the dirt.
Yeah, okay.
And he's like, I can't remember what he said, but like something happened, the car, something went weird with the car or whatever, and he on the radio was scared. Proper went like, oh my God, guys, like I nearly crashed. Like this is what happened. And it was just that he touched car broke. That's what it was. Oh my God, guys, car broke.
And then champ, you're on the grass.
They showed the footage from outside. It's like you've turned in from outside. And it was almost like Alonso. Alonso did the same, said something weird happened on entry. They showed the replay. But I think the drivers are just underestimating how fucking wide these things are now on a narrow track.
Yeah. Just answering Buffhead 4399. Yeah, we did talk about the Max and Lando racing out of pit exit earlier in the show. So you can either go back to that or we just said it was ambitious. It was never going to work, but good on Lando for trying to spice things up, really. Exactly.
Heard Scotty drove the steering wheels off the thing. Yeah, righto, mate.
He always does, Dino. That's what I love about the bloke.
I had a steering wheel come off of me in a NASCAR at the Adelaide Motorsport Festival just recently. Not good.
Any questions from those that are in the chat before we go to the private link for our Taupo pre-brief?
Final questions. Get them in. We're about to sign it off. 700 people here. Appreciate everyone joining us. If you would like to continue, I'll drop the Patreon link into the chat now because it is something we love to keep this special just for our Patreon members that support us to do a live stream. Everything goes out free eventually. This is probably going to be, I would say, the Supercar podcast will be shared on Tuesday.
Yeah, before you head off. Because, we're going to go into it in Taupo stuff, but Scotty's actually heading over to NZ.
I am. I'm racing in New Zealand in a Toyota Supercar. But
no spoilers.
Yeah.
It's in the Taupo one, mate.
But it is, for Patreon, we love to reward those listeners by getting live streams of our pre and post debriefs for Supercars. So if you want to be part of that conversation, jump over to Patreon, subscribe. If you enjoyed our pod anyway, subscribe to YouTube so you get notified when we go live. All the links to our sponsors as well, I'll pop in the description of this video. And if you can, support those guys. If you're actually traveling to East Coast, always offer our listeners a 15% discount, AHU15, if you want a discount on a hire car if you're traveling anywhere in the future here in Australia. I'm
actually going to be using that probably tomorrow. I'm going to book one for Bathurst over Easter weekend. I'm racing at Bathurst.
Oh.
And my guys are flying in. So I will use the AHU15 code at East Coast Car Rentals to make sure I get an amazing deal for them.
There you go. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for our first ever debrief of the Formula One from Suzuka.
Thanks, guys.